Hiya, it's Bailey, also known as Dragon West Art, and I thought today I'd give a little quick tutorial on layering and blending. I was going to initially use like the polychromos or something, because a lot of people have difficulty with that, and if you want a follow-up tutorial for those, I will do that. But I think a lot of beginners would want to see these kind of videos, and you know, they're not gonna have they're not gonna have the polychromos, they're not gonna have like the, well, they might, but it's unlikely that they're gonna have some of the artist grade pencils. So I just thought I'd try it. I might not upload this video if it's too difficult for even me with these pencils, but I doubt that's going to be the case. I gave them a quick swatch. I got them for fairly cheap off of Cult Pens. I can't remember the exact price, but I think they were under a £5, so they weren't dear at all. They are quite nice though, considering, like, I'll release a separate video, but I tested several, and for about the £5 mark. And honestly, they were probably one of the nicer pencils. I don't remember exactly how they feel, but whatever, that's going to be in a separate video anyway. This is just going to be about blending and layering. I'm not actually sure, I can't quite remember because it was a while ago as well, where sort of on the fence these fall. I'm not sure if they fall on more of like the, because in my opinion pencils tend to fall more into either they want to smush together, aka blend together, or they want to layer on top of each other. Some do both, but they tend to sort of, most of the time, lean one way or the other, and I cannot for the life of me remember which ones these ones do. I think they will tend to layer more, but I just don't remember. So this is a postcard from Wildergone. I bought the Wildergone books and they came with postcards, so that was cool. That's what I'm going to be using for my test paper today. You could use any paper, but obviously higher quality paper makes things easier. It's quite smooth, so maybe not the best for layering. This video is going to be a disaster, isn't it? I can already tell. But yeah, I don't know what colour I even want to do this. I'm going to try and use these big large open areas because that'll be easier to show things. You know what, pink, that's it, we're going pink. But the whole point of layering isn't that you're gonna, well, I mean, you could just layer this and just leave it as, but I actually quite like these pencils. I forgot that, I mean, I know out of all of the cheaper pencils I bought, they were at the top or near the top. I'd have to format and make the video to make a proper decision, but they were definitely some of the nicer cheap pencils that I bought, although you can't actually see the pigment on camera very well because I'm going very, very lightly. And that is tip number 1. I don't know if I'm going to bother numbering the rest, but a light touch is what you want. Some people say hold towards the end of the pencil. I guess that is what I'm doing, so I guess I'm saying that too. But yeah, you can technically hold it towards this end and still colour very lightly. It's just a lot more difficult. So generally speaking, you do want to hold it towards this end. It's not like a rule, it just makes it easier. Because I've had pencils where they're super duper short and I'm still like colouring quite lightly, but if you want to make your life easy, hold it towards the end. So I've done a gradient. I don't know how well it's showing up on camera. Slightly more colour here, less colour here. The way you do that is simply varying pressure, so more heavy-handed here and lighter here. Unfortunately, that's something that comes with practice, so you're just gonna have to practice that. that's useful for blending and layering, but for blending you tend to use a heavier hand and smush colours together. And I do not remember what kind of pencils these are. So we're gonna have a little fiddle around. I mean, I could try blending. I could see if it works. I'm going quite lightly though, because that's just kind of my style. I tend to layer more than I tend to blend, so I'm using a light layer of whatever colour this is. I don't think they're even named. It's 506. Are they all 506? They are all 506. That's not useful. Lammy or lamey or however you say it. Okay, so we've got this like bright pink colour, but what if you didn't want it to be super bright pink? Well, it's not very bright because I haven't done a hard pressure, but you know what I mean. So there's several ways of using layering. You can use it to build shadows, you can use it to change a colour, so you could use it like a glaze on top of a colour, which is what I'm going to do now. And there's several ways you can kind of alter a colour, I suppose. Say I wanted to make it warmer, I would probably add a bit of orange to it. Or cooler, maybe a bit of purple or blue. What I want to do is I kind of want to knock it back a bit. So I'm going to be using some brown. And by knock it back I mean sort of desaturate it, which if you don't know what desaturate means, is kind of like closer to grey or brown. So it's not going to be like vivid pink, even though it's not really vivid at the moment because I haven't pressed very hard, but yeah. So this is quite a strong colour, so even with light pressure it's really knocking it back. But what that means is A, I can use it for shadows, and B, I can just go over again with pink. And that's the layering process. You will not, it's not just, oh, I put one colour down and then I put another down. It is a process of back and forth. A lot of back and forth if you're using layering pencils. Like, for example, I could just, like, oh, that's too brown. Looking at the camera, it doesn't look super brown, but you get the idea. And then you just add pink again. And it looks more pink again. Another thing you could do, I mentioned earlier about changing the colour without desaturating it. So for example, maybe you'd want to add some shadows. If you want to desaturate it, you could use a grey or a brown depending on the colour. If you wanted to keep the shadow saturated, you could use a darker version of the colour that's still bright. I realise red and pink are not the same colour, but it's kind of as close as you kind of gonna get. Because I mean, if you tone red down with white, you do sort of get a pinkish colour. It's not exactly the same, but pink can be light magenta or light red. It doesn't, and this one looks more magenta-y than red. Whatever, it doesn't. You get what I'm saying. Hopefully I'm not just speaking nonsense. So even though these colours, I've got 12 colours here, you could do all sorts with them, like, you know, oh, I want this area to near the cat to be cooler. Just add some purple into the shadows, which that is a darker purple than I realised, so that's made things a little bit difficult, but that's fine. We'll persevere. And it's just light touch all the way through. I'll show you blending on this one, because right now I'm mostly doing layering. I'm going to go over with the pink again, starting to press a little bit harder. find out what kind of colour is this peach. It's very light, but if I use this, it will make it warm, like a warm colour overall. I don't know how to explain this. It's a colour theory thing, really. Maybe I should do a video on colour theory as well. But it's quite a warm highlight. So where white is, I mean, is kind of more of a cool colour, I suppose. Whites and greys and things. Technically they can be warm. You can have warm greys. But it's all very context dependent, is the thing. But this sort of colour is close to orange, so it's almost always going to be warm. So this is like a really interesting pink colour we're creating, and that's the great thing with layering, is you can get, like, instead of it just being, it's pink with some darker pink shadows, or it's just flat pink, which is not necessarily a bad thing. It depends what style you're going for. Like if you're going for a cartoony style, or just want to make your life easier, there's nothing wrong with doing that. But for my style, I prefer doing layering because it gives you interesting kind of results. Is there a dark blue? Yes. Let's try adding a little bit of that down here. So with a very light touch, you can get something more interesting going on. So now I'm going to do my best to blend. Oh, I need to decide what colours to use. I mean, I want it to be similar-ish to this one, but it's not obviously going to be exactly the same. I might have to layer more over with pink, actually. It's not very bright at the moment, and then you'll end up with the blending one looking super bright in comparison. Another thing to note, I'm using small circles, sometimes larger circles, but generally circles. It's a good way to blend and layer together. Okay, so I am now going to attempt to blend. I don't claim to be the best at it. The way I generally see it done I'm not even sure if this is the right kind of pencil for the job. Gosh darn it, we're going to use it. You can do a mixture of both, by the way. You don't have to stick to just blending or layering. Like you could do, I suppose in theory you are kind of doing both for one technique or the other, but pencils tend to lend themselves better to one technique or the other generally. So yeah, this is already popping out the colour a lot more because I'm using harder pressure. So hard pressure on your darkest bit with your dark, and then you just want to use your like, I realise this might look quite frustrating as a beginner because it's like, well, when I do it, it doesn't look like that. It's practice, unfortunately. You can watch a million videos, nothing is going to replace practice. Obviously watching videos can help, because if you just go in practicing but you don't know the techniques, you're not really going to get very far. Well, you might, but it's going to take longer. I want to get a similar effect to this with different colours, so I'm going to try. Yeah, these pencils definitely feel more like layering pencils than blending pencils in my opinion, but I think a lot of cheaper pencils do. Just going to go in heavy with the pink now. quicker, I find, blending. But in my opinion, I do prefer the results of layering. So it's a personal preference. What do you think looks nicer? And also, how long do both of them take? Because this one takes a lot longer, in my opinion, if you do it properly. Like, I haven't really built the colour up to this point yet, which I would normally do. I might do that afterwards, actually, so you get a proper comparison. And then take your lightest colour, and you can just heavy pressure that one all the way in. It's not a very dark colour, so you're not going to be able to see it very well. I can't even see it very well. Yeah, these are definitely layering pencils because they're not handling blending super well, but that's okay. You get the idea. So I'm just going to finish off the layering. You can use heavy pressure with layering, but you want to generally use light layers until the very top layer, or sort of gradually increase in pressure. Just going over kind of with a medium heavy pressure. And so I'm going to make a decision with the layering one. Where do I want the pink to be heaviest? I'm going to use heavy pressure there, and maybe there, and then I'm just going to layer around it lightly. You can end up with similar results for both, but yeah. I just prefer layering because you can get a mixture of colours. Like this sort of colour is a bit more unique compared to this, if that makes any sense. Because this is just the colour that I put down with the pencil. It just is what it is. Whereas this is a mixture of pink, brown and red. Trying to get them a bit more similar. I'm using light pressure, by the way. But generally this will end up darker and brighter more quickly than this. It'll take, if you're doing layering, it's going to take you a while to get to those bright colours, unless you just smack down a big heavy pressure first, but then it's going to be difficult to layer on top of that. And there's a giant dot that's showing on my camera, but not in... I can't actually see that in person. See if I can blend it out a bit. Nope. Still there. Oh, I could do an interesting thing with lighting though. Maybe. I don't know how well this is going to turn out, or how it's going to look like on camera versus with my eye, but it's not really done anything. Well, anyway, yeah, that's generally the difference. You can get similar results in the end, and honestly, there's not a lot of difference in terms of they're kind of merged together in terms of what you're actually doing. They both require the ability to use light pressure, and they both require a little bit of heavy pressure at certain times. It's just at different times and places, so they might as well, yeah, it's similar techniques. I'm just looking at this, looking at all the problems with it. Well, anyway, hope that was helpful for anyone. And if you want a polychromos tutorial, that will specifically be on layering. Like maybe some blending techniques, but I mostly use blending for backgrounds and layering for everything else. Well, a mixture, but yeah. Let me know. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.